so I'm speaking with composer Paul Mealor and director of the Voce Chamber Choir, Mark Singleton, about the new release on Signum Classics called Blessing, the music of Paul Mealor. So just first off, question to Paul. Can you tell me a bit about your musical background? Your route to choral composition?
Yes, I started off as a chorister at St. Asaph Cathedral as a little boy, singing the offices of the day.
Yeah.
And then gradually, as I got bigger, moved to alto and then to tenor and then to bass, sang them all. And during that time as a chorister, I had composition lessons with William Matthias, the Welsh composer, who had just retired. And so I started writing music really from about 9. And it was always connected to the sacred or to the spiritual. So that's how it all started off.
Okay, were these sort of early sort of forays?
Yes, I mean, you wouldn't want to put them on at Carnegie Hall. I can tell you that for nothing. They're terrible, but what they are is...
I'm sure they're not, I'm sure.
What they are is a young composer trying to understand the craft of composition.
Of course, yeah.
And so gradually, of course, they start to get better. I actually wrote a symphony in Crayola.
Symphony
in Crayola. You
right,
know those
okay, yes.
The crayons.
Yeah, and my mother has that now, and she threatens me every now and again she'll bring it out. It's never been performed.
It'll be performed one day.
I hope not.
We're the ensemble for you.
So I'm intrigued with this Crayola Symphony. I mean, was it sort of full orchestral, full movement, epic, or...?
No, I think it's about 1 page.
Okay, still. Good. So some composers have a routine they follow, like they have to do a certain thing at certain times of day. Do you have a routine you follow?
Yeah, I do. I tend to get up pretty early and compose for about 4 hours every day.
Mm-hmm.
Then, if I've got various teaching commitments or whatever, and I like to have a walk, and it's in that walking that I look and think over what I've done in the morning, and then I might do another hour or so. And it's really interesting because I'm a huge fan of Roald Dahl, you know, the writer,
yes, of course.
fellow Welshman.
Yes.
And he used to say that you can only really create with regularity. Mm-hmm. It doesn't often just come to you in the middle of the night. Sometimes it does, but most times it's just sat there and working hard. And then it's like a sculptor, you know, you get the idea and then you've got to sculpt away to get the shape of it and the structure. Of course, music is so different to everything else because it requires structure, tempo, time, colour, all of the, all these amazing
things that sort of come together to make it.
And so that comes with hard work.
And is there a particular piece on this disc, or just in general, that's caused not difficulties in its compositional process, but is there a work that's really taken a lot of work and walking to sort of figure through?
They quite often do, to be honest, because it's like you're trying to pull something out of the darkness with all the skill that you have, and often fail, and so you're pulling out something out of the darkness and trying to create what you can hear in that kind of back ear. And so every single note I sweat over. And as I've got older, they've got less and less notes. The music has got simpler and simpler. As I've tried to get rid of all that doesn't matter in the music.
Pare it down.
Yeah, that's right. And so I'll sweat tears and blood over everything. But the one on here that's quite tricky is To Seek Where Shadows Are, which is a 3-movement cycle on text by Christina Rossetti, which are all to do with different aspects of love. The love of loss, someone who has died, romantic love, and then the love of faith. And so trying to find different musical colours to represent those aspects of love was very tricky.
It's challenging, yes, of course it is. It works wonderfully though, when you hear it. I mean, it doesn't sound laboured.
It should sound as if I've just sat down and played it, but of course, that didn't happen like that.
No. So Mark, what was your first exposure to Paul's music, would you say?
I had heard about the Royal Wedding.
Yes.
And then I went searching for his music, and then I found A Tender Light by Nigel Short and Tenebrae. Yeah. And absolutely fell in love with the disc. Fell in love with the writing more than anything else. I mean, the ensemble is top notch. And from that point on, I said, this is somebody I want to work with. This is somebody I think that Voce's unique sound would bring a different dimension to what his writing was. And I was pretty bold and talked to Morten Lauridsen, who our mutual friend, and said, is there a way that we can be put in contact with each other? And then we met up in New York City, and with the intention of developing a relationship instead of just, this is going to be a one and done, come in and we'll do your music and then we'll move on with our lives. But from the moment I heard his music, and specifically the Beatitudes, which wasn't on that disc. But this is something that I knew was destined to be. If you look at the text of the Beatitudes and you talk about the creed of what we are as an ensemble, they match up very, very closely. And I'm quite proud that this is really our fourth collaboration coming up in May.
So you mentioned then the Voce sound.
Yes.
Could you tell me a bit more about the particular unique sound of your choir?
In its simplest terms, we talked about it before. It's we color in pastels instead of oils.
Okay.
We there's a difficult situation when choirs sing, because if choirs sing too boldly, then they will often push people back in their seat, and you're wowing them. But Voce has no intent on wowing. If that happens, that's a result. That's a symptom of what we've done. What we try to do is invite them in. So if you have a successful Voce concert, if you have a successful composer collaboration, then not only does the audience feel like they've walked away with some new sense of understanding of what is coming out of the world of music, what will be the world of music, but they actually feel like they were artists themselves.
Yeah.
They participated in the art. And that's my chief goal, is it's not the people up in front, it's the people in the circle. And if you can create that circle and everybody is in accord, that's a real performance. But it's more than that. It's a sound of experience.
And the mission statement of the choir is to serve harmony. I mean, that's the whole sort of part of the ethos, and the music all matches up very, very well with that. So you mentioned that this was the fourth collaboration that you worked on together. What was the catalyst, if you like, for recording this disc? What was the thing that said, right, we're going to make a disc together?
It was in a concert. We'd done our first concert, and Mark turns around to me and said, we have to record this. So I announced it in the concert. Just said, we're going to do it. And then, of course...
Did you know it was going to be announced, or was it a surprise?
We looked at each other. Yeah. There was a little wink and a nod in there.
Of course, the audience went freaked out, as they say in the United States, which was great. So then what goes on it? What pieces do you put on? And so we decided that the theme for the whole thing would be, because we felt that it's very unusual that a conductor, a composer, a choir, and an audience all just meld. And we thought that's a blessing. So we thought this was going to be, we should call the album Blessing, because it is a kind of blessing. It's the last piece, like piece called Blessing on the album. And so the idea that we had is that music in there that would kind of really show off what the choir does best in my music. And so that's how we came about with the actual structure of the album. And what's lovely is that the front cover of the album is a series of mountains, a journey towards the sun. So I walk mountains in Scotland and Wales every day for inspiration. And you're kind of heading out towards the mystical other world, which is the sun. So everything about the album has come together as a blessing.
In this sort of wonderful way. Oh, okay. And the actual process of recording the album, could you sort of just elaborate a bit more on that? How you spoken about choosing the repertoire, but actually rehearsing it and then recording it, and were you quite involved with the actual?
Yes, I mean the great thing is when you're a composer, once you've finished it, it's somebody else's job to make it up and bring it alive. But the great thing with Mark is he involves you straight away. So obviously they've done some rehearsals, notes and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But then I come in and I was there for the whole recording process, and indeed the days before, and was in the booth when it was being recorded. And every time we'd do a take, you'd say, "Why do you feel about this?" And so I was very much involved.
Yes, and once you've developed the rapport that we had developed, it's wonderful to be able to just speak truth, and it be taken as truth, and then quickly adopt and adjust. And that makes the process even more exciting. Paul was constantly telling us when something was, we knew we could all do it better, and he would say, "Shine bright," and it was.
And that was just understood between you what exactly that would mean. You could just get the choir to do that. So
and the choir. See, he's coming over a loudspeaker, So the choir, one of the important things about working with a composer is I ask the composer to address me, but aloud. A lot of times the composer will talk to the conductor and say, well, I think you're going too slow, or I think you're doing... It's tell all of us.
Yeah.
Because we are all a part of that art form. We are all central to making this work. And so when everybody hears this is the goal, then everybody will operate like a team, and they'll all understand what I'm trying to do, what Paul's trying to do, what they're trying to do themselves.
Everyone feels a lot more involved in it as well.
It says Mark Singleton there and Paul Mealor there, but really, if the truth is that every artist name should be on there, and it's because everybody was as invested as we were.
And you can hear it when you listen to it, that it's a real sort of team, more than a team effort. Everyone's as invested, as you say, when you listen to it back. So that's your thought. Have you got like an upcoming sort of joint venture between a fifth?
We do. Well, we have a big concert in May in Hartford, Connecticut, where Voce will perform my Requiem, Souls of the Righteous, which is one of the biggest pieces I've written. Very deep personal piece, which I wrote to mark the end of the centenary of the First World War in 2018. And so there are actually two movements of that on the album. There is a setting of If You Love Me, and then there is, I think, the best recording of anything of mine ever done by anybody, and that's the Beatitudes.
Okay.
And so that's on there, and that's in the record. So the Beatitudes are Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, as told to us by St. Matthew. And the amazing thing about that text is it shows you what you have to be godly, as it were. What are the most important things to be? And of course the famous line, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Well, anybody that's ever needed mercy and got it will tell you how that feels. And so it's one of my, what I now people call transcendental pieces, because I get letters from people all over the world. All over the world that they listen to that piece particularly, and they go into a transcendental state.
Wow.
And they write to me, telling me this. And I recently had a letter from a lady whose son was dying of leukemia, and they played that as he passed away. And so it's one of those pieces. And when you hear this recording of Voce and Mark doing that piece, it goes up another level. And when we did it in the first rehearsal, everybody was crying. We had to stop, the choir had to stop.
Wow.
You were crying, I was crying. And then the audience, because I was sat at the front in the concert performance, and I turned around and the audience was all crying. So it was very powerful. So that is one piece I think on the album.
That's the one. That's the sort of the standout track for you on the whole. If there was one standout,
I think there are two.
Okay.
For me, I think there's that by and then my setting of In the Bleak Midwinter, which is the Christina Rossetti, a piece that I never thought would ever become popular, but has. And in Mark's recording, that is how I want that piece.
That's how you heard it.
So anybody wanting to do that piece and perform it, that's how to do it.
Send this one.
Get the CD.
So the entire Requiem, is that sort of a large-scale orchestral thing?
It is.
Choir with it?
Yeah, it's for choir, soloists, orchestra, children's choir that sing a couple of bits as well. And it is a meditation, really, upon what looking back to war means to us now. And the words are written by the wonderful poet Graham Davis, and he asks us in those poems that are alongside the mass texts that we should not only have pity for those that have died, but also for the people that killed them. Mm-hmm. They are both not in a good place.
No, of course.
And so I think that's the beautiful angle that we took with that piece, that everyone needs to be remembered.
Wonderful. Okay. So obviously that's a joint collaboration between. And what's next for Voce as well? Outside, apart from Requiem, is there another? What's on the horizon?
Well, we hope a tour to England for next year. That's a really big push for us. Another big push is to be doing more recording, but that takes a tremendous amount of effort on my part philosophically, because you can go and record, and you can record and record and record, but that I've discovered that doesn't have as much meaning for me.
Okay.
I never set out. I had to realize this at a very young age. I didn't set out to be the most widely known performer. This is Maestro so and so, and he is there is no such thing as the best. And so once you figure that out, or once you begin to understand that, what you begin to value as I'm getting older is the relationships you develop. And when I work with composers, I seek first to develop that relationship. And their music stands alone. Always. That's why I'm there in the first place. But you know almost instantly, even from a simple handshake, you know, is this going to be something when you're looking somebody eye to eye that, hey, we can go somewhere with this. You and I share a common denominator, and that is to make the best music that we possibly can. I remember Behold a Tender Babe, and Paul was saying, you know, this is not quite what we're doing. And I said, is it a tempo problem? And he's like, well, maybe yes. Is it a dynamic range issue? Well, maybe yes. You know, we were really both trying to figure out, how does this thing come alive? And I said, Paul, you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like rowing and a river. And you turned to me at that point, and this is for his great nephew, and your great nephew actually was crew.
Yes.
And we talked about it, and perhaps it was subconscious, but it just, I mean, it sounds small.
No, that's the thing that made it click, obviously.
But then we did it. We was just like, the whole choir was listening to this exchange. They were taking notes on how, you know, we can all be better. They were, nope, it's not tempi. Nope, it's not dynamics. You know, what the heck is it? And we were just talking back and forth, and then they became that motion. I mean, as soon as you hear the opening of the track, that's what you're going to hear. I mean, if you were listening to this video right now and you put that track on, then you're going to feel like you are moving. You are controlling that path, and you feel the push and the pull for anybody that's ever done crew.
Okay.
It's like that.
Yeah, which I didn't even know. Which is fascinating.
And I think, Paul, we probably sort of, you've spoken about your favourite track, the Beatitudes off this one, would it be?
Yes.
Could you sort of, what specifically about this recording would you say in your
well, there are,
elevates it?
Yeah, there are a number of things. One is, I think, very rarely in the performance do people get the tempo right. It's always done too slowly. You know, people send me recordings of it, it's like 12 minutes or something. And so this is exactly right. And the pulse has to be right because it's a chant. Also, the piece rises to a section which is Rejoice. And Marcus kept the choir really quiet all the way through this until that moment, and it explodes. And no one's ever done that before like that. And I think the colour of it, because one of the things that is a feature of my music are very low notes in the basses. But what he did is, instead of having them as, you know, whoever can sing this, belt it out as loud as you can, which is what most choirs do, actually made that even quieter. So you feel the low B's rather than hear them.
Yes.
Okay.
I refer to it as dusting. Don't try to clarify what a low B is, but actually just paint with a soft brush. You know, that's it, a dust.
Okay.
And then pixie dust on the top, and then what you feel is the inner core of what that message is.
Okay.
It's fascinating to me because when you create an album, for want of a better word, I think that's a good word, why would someone want to buy or want to get that album if they've got others by me with it? Well, first of all, there's a lot of things on this that haven't been recorded before that people might not know. But I think with this album, because I was there for 3 years in essence before it was recorded, they're going to get everything as exactly as I want it.
Okay.
And I think that's really unusual.
So was this close, if it was a pianist playing his own music, this is as close to you sort of, similar to your interpretation?
Yeah, so if you had one of those keyboards that plays all the different sounds, there would be Voce in there, and I'd be doing that.
Wonderful. So could you tell me more about Voce, the choir, who makes them up?
Well,
Who is in it?
one of the things I can tell you is about the audition process itself. 7 minutes of it is music. And it's your standard thing. Sing your songs in 2 different contrasting styles. We have a little sight reading exercise and you know, and then testing your vocal range and so forth, and then what kind of tessitura you have as far as voice color is concerned. But I learned about 6 years ago, you have to build into that audition. If they have successfully completed those tasks, there has to be the same amount of time given to talking to that person, one-on-one. And I'll sit down, let's say you're auditioning for Voce, and if you begin to tell me all the great things you've done in your life and who you've worked for and how much they laud your work and look at what I've done, you're not the best fit for Voce. Because what Voce requires of that person is to say, all that, I can go feel good about in some other world. But when you enter into our rehearsal space, you are beginning again. You are brand new in this. You're great at it because you wouldn't be sitting there, but you are brand new and you become humbled. And you check your ego at the door. If you do not have that conversation with that person, you never know what you're going to get. Because you could have some tenor sing something so gorgeous, you haven't heard it sung better. But then you put them inside that section, and they simply don't gel. And then that becomes a huge problem. It actually can become quite contagious inside a section if they don't trust each other. Okay. And so Voce's sound is as much built on trust as it is on musicianship. And the second thing I would say about who the Voce singers are, all of them are conductors, basically. Many of them are music educators, which I'm quite proud of because they understand the process, the beginning to the end. And a few of them make a full-time living as singers. Okay. So it's a mixed bag, but all of them are exceptional.
Absolutely top-notch. Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting what you say about leaving the ego at the door and sort of having this wonderful sort of blended sound.
If you're gonna do what Voce does, you've got to be really comfortable with yourself, and you've got to say, all right, this is a sound that I don't typically make in any other choir. And I am essentially giving my softest, most precious part of myself to another group of 6 people that are trying to do the same thing. And once you guys realize together that this is something, it's a tender babe. It is a tender babe. It is something to be held. And if they can embrace that, then that sense of vulnerability becomes empowerment. Because then we all begin to blossom into a new sound. We've talked about before that Voce really, we don't build ourselves on fortissimos or bravado. Quite the opposite. We build it ourselves on bringing people into our experience that we're having right now.
Okay, well, thank you both very much for speaking with us today. And Blessing, the music of Paul Mealor, is out on the 13th of March.